Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all one more time to the inaugural edition of South India Retail Summit, or the SIRS, as it's come to be known. My name is Kenisha, and I will be your host this day. SIRS is the first of its kind regional retail event in the South India region, presented by India Retail Forum, or the IRF, to empower the region with retail knowledge, explore bigger and better future opportunities, align with national vision, and to provide a platform for all stakeholders in the South Indian retail to communicate, share, and evolve with the masters in the business. SIRS is a knowledge product conceptualized by the Images Group. As many of you already know, the Images is trusted as the catalyst for profitable growth of modern retail through knowledge platform leadership. Since 1992, the group has been operating a strong portfolio of B2B publications that covers all verticals of retail and has served to inform, advise, and inspire leaders and decision makers of the industry. At SIRS today, where some of the most revered and respected names in regional and national retail have come together, the objective is to highlight the achievements, challenges, and the future prospects of a region that is largely recognized as the birthplace of modern retail in India. We have lined up the most enlightening conference sessions carefully planned to cover the most pertinent aspects of the retail support, and shopping center businesses. Between sessions, do feel free to create business alliances across the retail value chain, as the majority of our attendees today belong to the senior management hierarchy. And to start the first segment today, it is about future retail. I'd like to call upon to the panel Mr. Alok Dubey, CEO Lifestyle Brands, Arvind Lifestyle Brands, Mr. Arjun Rajan, co-founder and CEO YatraChef.com, Ms. Falguni Nair, founder and CEO Nykaa.com, Ms. Lavanya Nalli, President Nalli Group, Mr. Neeraj Biani, Director and co-founder Paperboat Hector Beverages, and Mr. Vinay Singh, Managing Director, Max Hypermarket. And to chair this session, I'd like to invite Mr. B.S. Nagesh, Founder, Terrain. Today's topic will be inaugural and keynote addresses, growth and opportunities in retail, and the role of OMNI-CHANNEL growing the retail ecosystem.
Do that. Don't stop till the time I tell you, and see if you can make it louder, please. You should not clap like this. It has to be like this. Can you hear this? It actually energizes. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, and welcome to this panel. I'm privileged to have such a wonderful set of panelists here. I mean, each one of them start an online channel. You start a beverages company. You run a very large hypermarket chain. So you have a set of panelists who are here, and we're going to talk about the future of retail. We will not get into any of the frameworks, because between PwC and ATK, you actually have got the framework too. So we're going to talk about the real lifetime experience of people who have actually done it, gone through it, going through it, and we will do it much better. So I'll start with Lavanya from the Nallis. You actually seen 3 generations working together, and you must have heard about what the consumer behavior was 10 years back, 30 years back, 50 years back, okay, from parents and family members, and you're seeing it happening now. What are the 1 or 2 things that comes into your mind as far as change in consumer behavior?
So 2 things, right? First, I think what you said about changing consumer behaviors, consumer patterns, that's very true. I've been working for about 10 years now, and in that very short professional life, I think what I've seen is quite a drastic shift in how people, how women shop, and how they sort of have these allegiances and these sort of relationships with their brands, and a lot of changes in that dimension. I guess the biggest change and it probably is uppermost in most people's mind, is how we embrace technology today to basically enhance what has always been sort of our way of shopping, our way of seeking products, our way of seeking services. I think if I went back to say 10, 15, 20 years ago, that entire channel or that, that entire area was just not available for people. So consumers still had their needs, you still had their preferences, but you would have a few well-known brands in your area. You would go to the regional store, maybe you had a few national brands. A lot of the communication was through word of mouth. And then you would go to those brands and you'd sort of, you'd buy the things that you had. Today, I think it's a much more consumer-centric experience. The consumer is much more empowered. So whatever it is that I'm seeking, whether it's food, it's clothes, anything at all, services, beauty products, I feel as a consumer quite empowered, and that's what we're seeing with the people who come in today.
I just want to go back, and still I want to draw some experience. Ever in the family, around the dining table, have you had the discussion saying, 20 years back, modern retailing has come into India, what will happen to the traditional retail? Or now, to say online has come in, what will happen to the traditional retail? Because in the audience, a lot of retailers, people who are running business, always have this fear to say, online aa gaya, hawa hai, abhi kya hoga, mar jayenge. There was a time 20 years back when modern retail came, and I know when we opened Shoppers in Hyderabad, there was a huge gang of retailers and manufacturers who said, you can't supply to Shoppers Stop, otherwise we won't deal with you. Okay, do you think that fear was there? Or do you think that fear is right to have?
So I think the conversation, you're right, the conversation has always taken multiple forms. But that conversation has always been happening. There's a change. What are we going to do about it? But I think there's a couple of ways you can look at it. You can look at it as a threat, or you can look at it as an opportunity. I think what we have today is an opportunity. A lot of the conversation today is there's e-commerce, there's these online models, there are these mobile ways of sort of reaching out to the consumer, avenues that did not exist before. Now, is that a threat? At least in my sort of household and with my father, with my brother, everybody in the family business, we actually don't look at it as a threat. It feels like an opportunity because the technology that's available today is available for anybody to leverage. You've got an 80-year-old brand, it's an iconic brand, it's a heritage brand, you've had loyal customers, you know the products, you have access to the kinds of unique designs and patterns that nobody else has, and you've perfected that art form over 80 years. How can you leverage technology today to bring that to consumers? So that's the way that we look at it.
Perfect.
Not so
In
much
fact,
in a threat.
I want to pick up two things from here. One is, I think, in one of the presentations, probably PwC or ATK, I heard about brand being very important. And let's not forget Tata's 100-year plus, 80-year-old brand. So I think brand is very, very critical. It's looking very... Second is, what you see it as threat could be an opportunity. And opportunity is not only sitting in online, retail, and e-commerce, but there could be any other opportunity which people are probably ignoring. And if I go to Neeraj, whoever thought 4 years back that apart from the Cokes and the Pepsis, you'll have somebody who's going to bring back Ampanna and bring back Jaljeera in such a beautifully packed environment. Okay, what was it that made you look at opportunity? I'll request you to talk from an angle where some of the people who are sitting here are entrepreneurs, okay, may want to look at opportunities. Everybody's only wanting to go online. Who is going to produce and sell?
Yeah. No, so if you look at macroeconomic conditions and the demographics of the country, it really throws a lot of opportunity, specifically in food and beverage sector. So you have almost 50% of your population, almost, below 25 years of age, which means their forming years were in a post-liberalized era. You know, they've seen economy growing 7-8% year on year. They've seen this whole middle class is now more confident, is getting income to spend. And when you have that, you have aspirations of consumers which rise. They want more options. They want to consume. The consumption levels go up. And that's when we thought that, you know, in a diverse country like India, there was actually no or very limited options in beverages. And so we thought that here, you know, there is urbanization on one hand. There are nuclear families staying, both husband, wife working. And they've grown up with jaljeeras and ampannas and amras, and now nobody makes at home. So that was the inspiration, and the changing demographic was a surety that if you do something here, it will be a success.
But tell me, what happened with you and the promoter group of your colleagues who started this business? What is it that opportunity was the ampannas and the jalras being formalized? But there must be something else that must have happened. How do you get that guts to start? Dar nahi lag raha tha? I'm sorry. Hedar ke aagta hai lilwasam.
So Nagesh, you try to backfit models when it is successful, but I'll tell you the true story how it happened. And it happened over a lunch table when four of us was having lunch, and one of the co-founders' mom makes great ampanna. And so we always used to drink that ampanna together. And the other co-founder, he had his parents, he's an American, and he had his parents visiting him. So he went to a supermarket to buy ampanna because he wanted his parents to taste ampanna of India. And then, the next day he said, guys, you know what, there is no ampanna package in this country. And then we thought that every single day during those summer, we were having ampanna because we liked the beverage. But so many other people cannot have it because they don't make it and don't package. And that was the starting point.
So there's one more lesson here for the audience. It's not necessary that every time you have to talk to friends on WhatsApp and chat. Okay. You can have lunch together. It's always nice to ask your mom and have lunch with your mom, because mom is worrying also, because today is interaction only with Facebook. Absolutely. So mummy ke saath mein baitho, khana khao, and you can actually end up with Hector Beverages and Pepper Boat and probably $1 billion company coming out of India and something very unique. It's wonderful. Yeah. Vinay, if you look at these two, and if you look at the hypermarket business that you're running, you sell from, I'm sure, from ampanna to everything that's possible. How are you seeing the change in consumer behavior, and what are the adjustments that you are doing? Okay, especially from the audience angle is, I've already started my retail, and with onslaught of changes, how do I remodel myself? Or how do I rechange myself and my mindset? So if you can address the mindset and the changes that's happening in the environment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I was just paying a compliment on this new Anar variant of the paperboard.
What is it, Anar?
Yeah, there's a new Anar variant which I just tried the other day, and I think it was absolutely brilliant because they've really sort of captured the essence of Anar, and there are some aspects which are very difficult to capture, which they've done. So compliments. Yeah, I think in terms of change and what we are going through now, it's really a combination. As what was being said is that there are some sort of socio-economic changes which are happening, which is everything about increasing income. They're all very favorable as far as India is concerned. Increasing income, increasing spending, urbanization, literacy, all those things which are looking good. And from that point of view, there is far more aspiration. People are looking at things in a very different perspective from what they did 10-15 years back. So overall, aspiration is just going in one direction, which is going up. So people want more, they want to try new things, they want to, so that's, I think one part. There's a big premium today on health, there's a big premium on convenience, and literally the bar goes up every single day. So, I think in our business also, what we did 10 years back or 9 years back when we first started, today we feel that, if you're not reinventing every year, you're dated and, you're irrelevant. So I think, there is a lot of pressure on us, in terms of customer expectation. There's a huge change happening there. In terms of the way that we react to it, obviously, that it's all about, the experience that we give. And so, we look at it, we call it the 4 pillars of SPA. So, or, they're fairly generic actually, but it's, about value, it's about our choice, which is the assortment, it's the service, and it's the freshness or the quality. So it's basically a play between these. For us, the way we see it is a play between these 4 in terms of our proposition. That means our brand and what we stand for from a customer perspective. And how each of these elements, and they're all important. So while, price for a food store is very important, but, all the others are also very, very important. And how do you keep yourself relevant in that space? How do you keep your brand relevant? And then you, of course, come into, the whole paradigm of, the channels, which is, how do customers want to buy? And honestly, we really, the choice is exploding today. I think technology is, one is the socio-economic changes, the other is the technology. So those two changes are happening at such a pace that I mean, our belief is that you have no choice but to let customers, shop anytime, anywhere. And if you are not able to provide options, there is the relevance of your brand comes into question.
So and for all the panelists, as we move, I would definitely like you to talk to the audience about how does a CEO keep improving or changing his mindset to adopt what's happening? Because you said there's no option. I mean, if technology is changing, consumer is changing, you have to be with the consumer. But what happens to this mind, which is a 50-year-old and has been thinking of the old times and is not wanting to change?
No, I think, see, as far as India's, I mean, are you talking about consumer or talking about
I'm talking
internal?
of the management, the people, the owners, the CEOs.
See, you have no choice. I mean, if you want to be relevant, you have to change. So you have to adapt, you have to adopt, you have to change. So, that's the imperative. So there is no choice in the matter. And as far as customer is concerned, I'm saying today in India, like 50% of the population is less than 25 years of age. So the adoption of, with this revolution happening in terms of, the income levels, spending levels, technologies, and they're the ones who adopt it. If you don't cater to them, then, you are irrelevant. I mean, you'll just, become a fossil within no time.
I like that word. I want to pick the word change from you and come to Falguni. Before we talk about Nykaa, I want you to talk about the change that you went through. From investment banker to an unknown technology space, unknown beauty space, and you created something in the last 3 years? 3 years? Yeah, something which is Nykaa and is being talked about as an online cosmetics and beauty space. So can you share about your personal journey of that change, that moment of change? How did you go through? What did you do? How did it happen?
I think being an investment banker and having done a lot of IPO, I came very close to a number of entrepreneurs. And just that early phase where they create value and concept and business out of nothing excited me. And I wanted to try out the entrepreneurial journey. And for a long time, it took me almost 3 years to quit. So it was a difficult decision. And for a long time, I kept trying to weigh, what am I giving up and how successful the next journey will be. And soon it dawned upon me that if the journey is so important and I will definitely enjoy the journey, I should stop worrying about the destination. And with that belief, I just jumped into something which I believed would succeed. Like I was convinced that a multi-brand retailer for beauty in India will succeed because there were certain issues, like there were long tail inventory problems. We didn't have the formats that West has in terms of, the ground floor of every big mall, like Harrods and Selfridges has just beauty products. We don't have those formats. So I felt that combination of e-commerce and bringing multi-brand retail into India would definitely be a successful formula. So kind of blindly jumped in without, a lot of people ask me, am I a computer engineer? I'm not. Was I a beauty enthusiast? I was not, but figured out the business and it's been a lot of fun. But taking on from some of the things Vinay said, I think you have to be really open to taking ideas from youngsters because 90% of our customers are in the age group of 18 to 35. So we give a lot of empowerment to young in our office. There are 21-year-olds, 23-year-olds who say, oh, I don't like the social media posts. And we really seriously listen to them, So we gave a lot of power to our young in the organization because our brand was young, it was appealing to the youngsters, and that was a beautiful journey, and we learned a lot from that.
Alok, coming to you, you've run the brick and mortar as in the fashion apparel business for the last 10, 12 years' time. To what's happening today, and hearing what the other panelists are talking about, the change and the new generation of consumers, how do you see the future of the fashion business? We'll move slowly into future of retail. And if you can also talk about the online space, and also talk about if there is a convergence that you're seeing, because Falguni said she's planning to open 3 stores or 4 stores. So we know that Pepperfry is already open, so everybody is coming to online this side, because actually they see offline people make money, so they want to come this side because they will make money there, yeah. And offline people want to go there because they get money. Well, look at the beauty of this. I'm going that side to get money and they are coming this side to spend money, but anyhow. So just if you can share that.
I think the most significant change that we are seeing is on both sides. We are seeing change on the channel side and we are seeing change on the consumer side. Why channel is changing? Because there is the emergence of an omni customer. That's what I think. The customer has become omni. He's got a mobile phone in his hand where he decides to shop where he wants to shop from. And therefore, fashion has become more democratic. Earlier we would look for aisle space in say, go to Shoppers Stop, fight, bag, whatever. Today, that distribution opportunity has become very, very huge. You don't have to really worry about how to sell. What you have to really worry about is how do you anticipate the changing needs of the customer? Because we are seeing a lot of things happening together. In the Western models of retail, there was a sequential evolution, whereas here we are seeing a continuous evolution. It's parallel. We are seeing, we saw traditional going to multi-brand, going to department stores and going to e-commerce in a sequential way in the West. Here it's all happened. 10 years back we were talking about tailoring. Tailoring has come back as form of bespoke today. And technology is changing very, very fast. Today you are not the only ones who's choosing the product. In the online world, even the product is choosing you and customizing an offer for you because it knows the consumer behavior is very, very predictable now on an online space. So therefore, the most important challenge that we are facing is, and especially in the fashion business, is how do we address the needs of this unique omni-channel customer who is doing cross-channel shopping. He's not restricting himself to shopping one. He's looking at one place, doing, demonstrating the second behavior at the other place. So it's become very research, purchase, and post-purchase engagement that we are seeing in the fashion space now.
Okay, let me throw one question to all the panelists. Yesterday in the Hindu, there was a small column which is done by the Ericsson Research, and they have said there that in 5 years smartphones will not exist. I mean, this was a shocker for me because 3 years or 5 years back, everybody thought of only the PCs. Nobody thought things will go into mobile. And Myntra, when it went mobile only, app only, we thought it's a great revolution. And somebody here is saying that in 5 years there won't be. It will all be intelligence, either embedded intelligence or a different kind of intelligence. So we don't know, one. Second is, a few years back, somebody asked me to write an article, what will happen to retail in 2061. By that time, I would have been more than 100 years. So I said, it's very difficult to write, but I said, we will have a virtual birthday celebration. I'll be 105, and my grandchildren will be in US, my wife will be at home, and we're going to have a virtual birthday celebrations where we'll blow the candle together. Day before yesterday, if you go to the net, in Tokyo, in Japan, a couple celebrated the birthday together. One was in Tokyo, one was in Osaka, and they actually blew the candle together. So which means they blew on the screen, and the candle went off, and actually the birthday celebration happened. Now, I'm talking of imagination, which I thought I was a stupid fool, and it's 1 year it actually happened. So in this kind of an environment, how actually do you look at the future of retail integrating technology? Should people sitting here be thinking 5 years down the line? Should strategies be made for 10 years, 5 years, 3 years? Or should it be 2 years, 1 year, and much shorter period? I mean, what would be your thought, guidance? You all must be doing business plans for your investors and for yourself. Anybody can pick up.
I think technology now, with what's available in terms of cloud and the cost of technology and a lot of ready platforms that are available, the cost of technology is hardly anything. So I personally feel that, I came from banking where we would have long debates about how large the data center should be and what will be the cost and stuff like that, to now the new environment where even banks are coming and adopting technology in this way. So the cost of technology is hardly anything. It's a lot of human effort, human intelligence to make it work for you. So I think the way I look at it is that every company should have focus on technology, on an ongoing focus on technology, keep bringing new technologies into the business. And they could be from many, beacon technology that's coming into the store and stuff like that. And then with that, you get empowered with data analytics and personalization, and the whole retail is going to go that way. So power of technology is immense. The cost of technology is hardly anything. It's a lot more detailed planning and attention to details. So make it a habit into organization to look at both data and technology, and then the kind of ride you'll have will be amazing. So yeah.
Let me go back to Neeraj and.
May I say something?
Yeah, you please. Hello, yeah.
I think the objective of technology would be to perfect the core retail process, as well as to enable ease of use for the consumer when he uses technology. That is the main criteria I would see to invest in technology, whether it is 5 years, 2 years, 10 years. It has to become an enabler, both for internal users, as well as for the user who's going to buy.
But
and it has to provide one seamless experience.
But the kind of change that's happening in the market, Do you think it is possible now to create strategies for 3 years and 5 years? Or you create a strategy for today and keep working on it and keep moving
I
around?
think it will keep evolving because technology will keep evolving. So you will have to keep pace
So
with technology.
technology is evolving,
Yes.
consumer is evolving, the way we get our monies are evolving. So all resources are evolving at a much faster speed. Yeah, and therefore this whole thought about saying I will create a technology of the future. So I'm saying you have a challenge of current and future happening together. Okay, and that's something that the management, the senior people always think, especially when people are coming from the earlier generation of businessmen. And this is a key challenge that everybody is facing.
We are assuming that the generation in management will not change. It is getting younger. It is getting nimble.
Honestly, it is not. How many people have stepping out? There's not many Falgunis who say at 50 I'll. So I was about to come to you, Neeraj. I want to make a statement totally away from this. Okay, I'm saying that you have created a very successful business. You said you have 40,000 retailers. Okay, if it is okay to talk in public, okay, how much of business comes from the traditional retailers, not the so-called modern hypermarkets that Vinay and the big bazaars run, roughly?
So it's a journey. So let me tell you what happened when we launched the product.
You are avoiding my question. So you can say no to that. I just want to come to a point. I want to ask you this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no, I can share that. So we do almost about 50% of our volume through these 40,000
Traditional.
retailers.
So what I'm trying to ask is 40,000 retailers have contributed to your success.
Yes.
And these are traditional retailers.
Yes.
These are not 25-year-old
Yes.
technology guys.
Yes.
These are people who have been sitting in the market and who know how to deal with their consumers.
Yeah.
So suppose if I make a statement, there's a lot of hawa happening on this online space, investment, valuation getting created. In India, for the next 20 years, you can still create many hector beverages. You can still deal with the small traditional retailers, okay, and still create fantastic opportunities.
I think so. I see the basic buying process or buying behavior is not changing. Earlier, what used to happen, you will either get some information about the brand, you will go to their outlet, you will see the brand and buy it. Today, you're getting that information in an electronic way. You are probably taking consensus in a star rating or what your friends talk about it, about the product way. But at the end, you're going and buying that product for that use. So the buying process, the buying behavior is the same. The only way you are getting and consuming information, the way where you are going and buying is changing. So I don't think that, the basic process of consumer behavior is changing.
I'll tell you why I'm raising this. I see a lot of smaller companies, mid-sized companies, where the manager spends 50% of the time discussing in what's happening outside. And these are all partly fear, partly opportunity, and therefore not concentrate on the existing business, which still has a huge, huge opportunity to sell and do the business. And I think that, to me, is very, very critical. Look at what the changes happening around you, adapt to the changes, look for the changes, but don't just run away from concentrating on the business, which is your bread and butter today. Otherwise, neither you'll get there, nor you'll have this. Lavanya, I want to come to you. Having studied in US, lived in US, come back, you worked for Myntra for a year and a half, you've seen that part. How fast is the Indian young consumer, behaving like the American young consumer?
I don't think it's India, US necessarily, but I think the young consumer is not like anything we've seen before. I'll just put it that way. So
across the world, across the globe.
Across the globe. And because of a lot of changes that have happened, but also, and I'll speak in an anecdotal sense, right? The last year and a half, I worked with Myntra, and before that, I was in the US for 5 years. In 5 years, so much has changed. A lot of the people in my team were kids who were born in the 90s, and we were just having this conversation, and I said, these kids are fearless. So they have no ceiling. And it's just sheer drive, motivation, optimism. They kind of look at an opportunity and they say, no, let me go out there and get it. Right? That's a phenomenal quality. Now that's happening at every level. That's happening with the people who are coming into the workplace. That's happening with the entrepreneurs who are taking the kinds of risks that previously, I guess in generations past, they wouldn't have had because there's a stigma, because there's a fear of failure. Now, all of that is going away. That's happening with consumers as well. People are willing to experiment with new ways of shopping, of buying, of meeting the same needs that have been evergreen. So I think that shift that we're seeing is a universal shift. And this is my this is my hypothesis, but I think we're seeing it or we're feeling it perhaps a little bit more in India, because in other more developed nations, perhaps there are these institutions which are quite evolved, which are quite mature. But in India, there's a lot of gaps yet in our society. And the last few years with technology, I think we're seeing that those gaps are getting much more smaller. So there's somebody who's sitting in a smaller town somewhere. If he wants to go out there and he wants to buy a jogging shoe or he wants to buy something else, there's nothing that stops him from seeing what's out there, from having an opinion and having a taste, and from saying, okay, this is what I want to buy and I want it to get delivered to my home. 20 years ago, that would have been unheard of.
So I would agree with you that the future of retail, at least in India, is quite open. Opportunities are very large. Don't see it as a threat, see it as an opportunity. Don't get the fear of failure. I think trial is important, so definitely try. I mean, if you don't try, you will not even succeed or fail. I think that's a fantastic kind of a juice that I'm getting from the panel. Before we get into the omni-channel part, Falguni, if you can talk about how easy or difficult, okay, for general public today, entrepreneurs, to actually garner resources, whether it is financial resources, whether it is people resources, or whether it is technology.
I think it looks difficult at one point, but I think if you pursue, I think today, I think all of it can be done. And Nykaa's own example, like we set up e-commerce company in Mumbai, and everyone told me you can't get tech talent in Mumbai. And we seeded some initial tech talent. We went all the way to IIT Bhubaneswar and seeded some talent from there. And post that, you know, with that core and then recruiting from the industry and all, we built a nice tech team and it's growing. So I think, you know, if you really want to do it, you can make it happen. I think India's a very...
I just want to butt in. An unknown Nykaa was invited in IIT Kharagpur?
Yeah, we
or you use some of your past connections to get in. I mean, because many of them, I mean, how do I go? I mean, for example, I want to go to IIT Kharagpur and interview people.
Yeah.
I mean, I forget day 0 or day 30. Will they entertain?
No, I think it was because of the e-commerce. I think e-commerce is a strong draw. I cannot tell you at every level, I've been so surprised with the kind of talent I've been able to attract. More recently, someone who's from Stanford and also, you know, I mean, I INSEAD and worked for many years in GE, and a real performer wants to be in e-commerce and hence has come and is working at Nykaa.
Wow.
So I think e-commerce has been, you know, youngsters have understood that this is the next learning ground, you know, and it's not, e-commerce is not just e-commerce, but it's digital marketing, it's technology, it's all of it put together. So getting talent was considered difficult, especially tech talent. Commercial talent in Mumbai is easily available, but not tech. Also financial resources. I think in 2012 when I started, e-commerce was a bad word. I think even Flipkart and Snapdeal were not funded. And also beauty e-commerce was even worse. So everybody didn't believe that, everyone believed that that won't happen. And I consciously chose that because I was like, I call myself as third generation of e-commerce companies, and there's no point doing what everyone else like Myntra were doing well already, which is fashion. So chose to be in beauty, and I think, you know, I think convincing investors that this business can work. I took a different approach. I said instead of giving them assumptions which they don't believe, I'll make those assumptions happen and then only go and raise money. So I was fortunate enough to have that initial seed capital where I didn't need to lean on them for that. And so I think if you pursue and you know, you have the passion and you convince others about your passion, you can get there, whether it is financial resources or your team.
Alok, how easy or difficult it is. I know J. Suresh is also somewhere here, but how easy to convince Suresh or Clint or Sanjay Bhai or the board to say that we have a 3,000 crore company, we are going to make a lot of money and we are making money. But let's put on the 200 crore in our business, which is not likely to make money for the next 3 years.
Very difficult.
Very difficult. Well, that was a so easy answer. Yeah, it is very difficult. It is very difficult. Yeah.
Somebody was telling me that you know, you have to change the words. So instead of saying that you are going to make a loss, you have to say you have to actually do a 200 crores cash burn.
Yeah.
Then they might understand.
Well, Vinay, getting into this whole omni-channel, because the consumer is going omni-channel, they want a 24/7 shopping. Do you think hypermarkets, and we know of Grofers, we know of Big Basket, we know of Local Vanya, we know what's happening in that world, but we also know that the the market shares that they've got is very, very small and minuscule. Okay, is this an opportunity for the hypermarket business? And if there are some people from supermarkets and kiranas, is this an opportunity? Should one be doing it because the consumer is going omni-channel?
Yeah, actually, as I had said earlier also, that, I mean, our belief very clearly is that you have to, there is no choice. I mean, you know, as far as the customer is concerned, you have to give the customer the option of shopping your brand anywhere, anytime. So, I mean, our belief is that there is no choice, and you know, you have to follow the evolution of what is happening, and you've got to make sure that you're relevant in those channels. And you give the customer choice. I mean, there's a certain franchise which you enjoy for your brand, which you have built over so many years. It could be in any channel. For us, like it, you know, we have built it over a hypermarket business. We have built it over brick and mortar. But it does not mean that, you know, I mean, that's the end of the journey, because that's, I mean, so we have built our brand, we built our equity, we stand for certain things. Now, customers must have the option of getting that experience anywhere, anytime.
So is there a way where you can help the audience? You're saying there is no choice. We are seeing consumers become omni-channel. Okay, I think I saw Nuts and Spices promoter sitting here. I mean, they must have gone online, 10, 20, 30, 40 stores. But what about the smaller, the 40,000 odd kiranas there? I mean, do you think, is there a way that they can adopt this practice? Okay, although they may tomorrow become a threat for you, for your business.
Yeah. See, I think the way, I mean, this whole omni-channel aspect, the channels are rolling out, and I think all the technology enablements which are happening to see that, you know, this reaches customers, it's developing in just a wonderfully networked way. You know, it's like everybody has a role to play, and everybody can have a role to play. I think the limitation is in your own mind, you know, how you actually build models around, and this is the most exciting part of, I think, this whole technology enablement which is happening, is because, like, if you have that platform opens up thousands of doors. I mean, you can look at 1,000 models. The limitation is your own mind, and, you know, like how you want to adapt to it, and maybe there'll be some implications on investments and people, etc. But I'm saying otherwise, if you get that platform, you can involve everybody. Or, I mean, depending on what you think is relevant, how do you finally reach the customer? How do you satisfy that customer need?
So jump on the ecosystem. There are models available of collaboration, and grab that opportunity which is sitting next to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, the sense that you need to think through your model. You need to think through what you stand for. So what are those propositions which you believe are relevant for your brand, which you want customers to experience? And in whatever way you can enable customers to reach it through any route. It could be through your own store, it could be through a click and collect, it could be through home delivery, it could be through kirana, it could be through you know, a B2B channel, it could be through any other. So there are.
So let's say that there is this opportunity, and I want Falguni and Lavanya, if you can take this question. There is an opportunity. There are the Amazons and the Flipkarts of the world who have created a large platform. You can jump on the platform, reach distribution. But on the other hand, we also hear of people saying that now they have 100,000 registered resellers, and how do you put yourself onto the small screen of 12 by 12? So slowly and slowly and slowly now you have to struggle to get that. You know, what in the hypermarket space they call as listing fees. You know, you have to start getting into the listing area. So it is becoming the same struggle now going forward, even dealing with this collaborative platform. So what does one do about it? How do you really engage and use the collaborative platforms which are coming up? Whether it is, so for example, Falguni, if there's somebody who's got a brand and wants to launch a cosmetic brand in Nykaa, what should be their way forward? How will they go about it? How will you help them promote? Now, because you are a senior entrepreneur, so there's a junior entrepreneur. What should be the way forward?
No, I think there are two ways. The shortcut method is to be on Amazon and Flipkart and get that customer. But like he said, there is a collaborative digital world. You could work with banks. You could work with, you know, because they have a lot of credit card customer database. And you could work with many other forms. You could, like, we are partnering with Oyo Rooms also. So you could partner with many different digitally savvy, you know, platforms and interconnect. And it's not just that. You could also partner with a YouTube partner, a YouTube channel, you know, or you could straight go to go and show your display ads on where people are going for content. So there are many ways of reaching the consumer. But once you have a digitally empowered platform, you can also benefit from that. I think that's what he meant. People like us have done that in trying to build our own retail presence. That's what we've done. So today, Nykaa gets 4 million visitors a month, and it's been a mix of, it's not just all paid, because that would be too expensive to afford. So it's a mix of a lot of collaborative efforts like this.
So Lavanya, would you, do you collaborate with the jewelers? So we know wedding is a very large occasion for Nalli's brand. So would you see saris collaborating with jewelers, although they may not be from the same family, but maybe on the same street?
So actually, interestingly, we have diversified into jewelry.
Wow.
So we have one in.
So you don't want to leave space for anybody else, yeah?
I'll take that as a good, as a positive comment. But yes, I think the larger question of how do you win in this new sort of changing landscape, echoing a lot of things that Falguni had said. The landscape has changed, but I think it's the same. The tenets of business, the sort of the principles of business are still the same. Understand what your consumer wants and understand like what's the best way of giving it to them. So whereas previously you would focus on, if it's a product-based business, you'd focus on getting a very good quality product at a price point that you know your consumers can afford. And then it's all about how do you make it accessible to that consumer. And in the more established business models, there are ways. There are these more evolved distribution channels. There are these larger sort of retailers that people go to. There are listing fees. It's an evolved model. This, what we are seeing today, is an emerging nascent industry. So it will also go through the same sort of improvements. It will also hit the same level of evolution. But today, I think the fundamental things that we are trying to do is still the same. You're trying to, you focus on a good product, focus on building a good brand, know who your consumer is, understand how that consumer is today behaving, how they are seeking how to find products like yours, and then you become discoverable. And if the consumer today is someone who is quite often on their mobile phone, whereas previously they used to go to their family members for advice, and today they actually do the same thing, but they do it through Facebook, they do it through other mediums, then find a way to make yourself discoverable there.
I think this is a wonderful way to end this part of the panel discussion, because I think she's hit it on the nail to say, look at the fundamentals of the business, and you need not change the fundamentals of the business. You only need to look at doing business differently because of the environment. Wonderful. Since we were running late on time, I'm trying to cover up 10-15 minutes out of the session so that by the end of the day we finish the program on time. We'll take 1 or 2 questions. Request is raise your hands. If you have a question specifically for a person, take the name. And please do ask a question. Being a Twitter world, okay, I can't allow you more than 20 words to ask the question. Yeah? Anybody has a question to ask, please? Raise your hand. Yeah, please. Give me one of the mics from here. Nice.
My question is, what is you have categories of businesses like FMCG and consumer durables and all. In which category you think this omni-channel is growing, and which category it has got impediments to growth? I mean, anybody.
You want to answer, anybody? Which are the channels where the categories are growing? For example, we know that books, it started off with books, then went on to electronics, and now fashion is becoming better. Food is still far off. One of the indications, early indications we had was wherever price played an important role and the brand and the commodity was commoditized, it was easier to do. But any other category you see, any indication of what category do well?
Yeah, I can just give insight into what consumer companies are thinking, and these are global companies like L'Oreal, HUL. They all have targets to do 20% of their sales through e-commerce globally. So they are clearly wanting to move towards e-commerce in a very significant way.
Yeah, anybody else who has a...
When you say in India, food is far from e-commerce, well, yes, today. But if you look at China, the second largest category sold on e-commerce is foods.
Yeah.
So I don't think food will be away. The only thing I think what we need to do from FMCG perspective is this whole MRP thing has to go away. And then the channel conflict reduces, and then the relevance of channel increases.
I wish there was somebody from the government here. Anjali, Amitabh, I think you should do an article on how MRP is hindering the growth of the food category. Yeah, maybe Neeraj should write an article. Anybody else?
Just a
please.
quick comment. I mean, the only one thing which I'll add, I think most of it has been said, is that the one category where I see the very big challenge is on fresh foods. Because fresh foods, again, this whole thing about, the ensuring those service levels and the product quality and the freshness is an area. So I think, the fresh food part is, the way I see it in the current context in India, is relatively small. And so the challenges around that are probably, far greater than...
But if somebody cracks the fresh food delivery omni-channel, they should be a big success. Yeah?
I would think so.
Yeah. Excellent. One more question we'll take. Yes, please. Oh, you have them. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Suraj, Director Kirti Lal's. Wanted to get an idea from the panel on steps that you've taken in your organization to make your team more ready for this digital adoption. Because it's come into the industry in a big way, as you're saying, in the last 5 years. So how have you made your team to probably become more focused on digital, and how you've made them aware that digital can be a huge value add for the organization?
You're talking about digital as a whole, right?
Digital readiness.
Okay. I think it has to come from the top, right? So that's the most important thing. So I am heading a division which is about 1,000 crores business, right? And we have today, or in the last 2-3 years, we've grown from a 0 to about 3-4% on selling through online or digital networks. We have a clear goal. And I think when I say that it has to come from the top, the whole organization's KPIs will have to change, because this is a new set of things. It will not just lead at calculating the retail KPIs that we used to do. It's a different world. So the entire gamut of how you manage the expectations of the organization and make e-commerce at the very center of that's the name of the game. I think so it is very integral. It starts with me or from my boss, and it goes down.
So since I was involved in 2 of these changes, let me share with you. I agree with Alok, it starts from the top. It's also important that you're very clear, like you said, the KPI is part of it. But this is also cannot be done through a radical change. It has to go through a transformation. And I think that is very, very critical. In both the organizations, we actually have created a transformation change agent, an officer or a very senior person who's involved in the transformation. Because remember, if this offline becomes totally online, you're again going to have a problem. Eventually, it cannot be offline and online. It has to be omni-channel. Finally, it will be convergence. So today it says, I am online, he is offline. Look at US. 4 years back, almost all the stores, Macy's, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, were reporting offline sales and online sales. And there were 2 companies within that. I am an offline guy and you are an online guy. Today, they don't report offline, online separately. It's all about converged business. So bringing the change, bringing the conversion, but be sure that this is a 1 to 2 years journey. It cannot happen, especially in old organizations. I know Kirti Lal, but I'm saying organizations like ours, yours, it cannot happen just because the bosses decided to click the button. I think that journey has to go.
It won't happen in a day or 2, because there is so much change in technology that is required to really become a complete omni-channel.
And there are multiple things that happen, when you have a 40-year guy who's getting a salary of 15 lakhs of rupees, and you're asking him to hire a 25-year guy who's wanting a 35 lakh of rupees, that itself is a change. So I think huge change the organization has to go through. Okay, we'll take one more question and then, yes, please.
Hi, my name is Sanjay. I'm with Gito.me. We are an e-commerce technology platform. The question is for all the panelists. We have been talking about omni-channel. I want your thoughts on hyperlocal and how omni-channel and hyperlocal is going to affect the ongoing or the upcoming business scenario. Because what we see that today you have on the e-commerce part, you have huge marketplaces. There are specialized marketplaces coming up. But for the traditional trader, for the traditional businessman, He can go online and become omni-channel. He can have a mobile app and become omni-channel. But how the strength of hyperlocal along with omni-channel is going to help the overall market?
Yeah, I think, see, first of all, I think there's a lot happening in the hyperlocal space in the last year or so. And the way I personally see it is that, see, I mean, it all finally boils down to what we have been repeatedly saying, which is, customer choice, customer decides anytime, anywhere. And if that's a proposition which is relevant and sensible, then they will be hyperlocal. And that's the proposition which, the hyperlocal operators who are there today, I mean, that's a proposition which they obviously see. And like I was saying again, that, in this whole world of, this whole digital space, omni-channel, it's all very networked. In fact, while we run a brick and mortar store at this point, a lot of hyper-local operators actually come in, like use our stores for sourcing. They do their picking from our stores. So I think, I mean, increasingly, like we were saying, that it is going to become more and more networked. So the same point which was raised about the smaller stores, about I mean, what is the role that everyone's going to play? So I think, it's going to become a big networked world, and, whatever the propositions, you got to see what is relevant, and, for what is relevant, the appropriate models will be formed. And it's a natural. I know that, there is so many $1 million which have been, funded for these guys. It raises a lot of questions about, the models and the sustainability and, like what do these investors see? But obviously, I mean, they are seeing value, and so there are those questions. But I think otherwise, it's finally boils down to what is relevant from a customer point of view. Sustainability, from my personal point of view, question mark.
Yeah, but from your word, I think all of us as consumers should definitely thank the investors, because it is because of them that we are getting these prizes, and we would like to encourage the investors to spend more money on that. At least as a consumer, we would love that. So ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful panel, and a big round of applause for our panelists.